What's that? Okay. Hi, good morning, and welcome back to Create, Share, Inspire podcast. This is episode 751. I'm Kristin Omdahl, and we're here live in Southwest Florida in my studio this morning. If you are joining me live, please say hello. If you have questions for me, please feel welcome to ask. And if you just want to share what you've been working on, I know we all like to hear what everybody else is working on. What are you being creative with? Hi, Trisha and Val. Good morning, Grace and Joe. Good morning. Hi, Thea. Good morning. What's today? Thursday? Is today Thursday? Yeah. So happy Friday Eve. I have a friend that says that to me and I love it. Hi, Rita and Debbie, Nanette, Proverbs, Lily, Kimberly. Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody's having a good crafty start to their day already. Hi, Donna. Good morning. Phone's just a little too far away for me to be able to read the comments this morning, so I'm looking on my computer. And I apologize to anybody who had a difficult time finding the podcast this morning. I forgot to schedule it till just a few minutes ago. All the more reason to sign up for the bell notifications if you're already subscribed to my channel, because then if you can't find it and when I go live, you'll still get notified that I'm live right now. So I know, but I do also know that a lot of you enjoy the pre-chat before the podcast. So again, I apologize for, I was multitasking this morning and trying to get a bunch of things done all at once while getting ready, and it completely skipped my mind to schedule it. And for some reason, I just have a hard time scheduling more than one at a time, because I can't do it on my computer. I have to do it on my phone, and it gets a little, I don't know, making excuses. I should schedule them out all week on Sunday night. I know. So I'm sorry. I will try to do better. Hi, Kathy. Good morning. Who do we have here this morning? Do we have baby Bjorn? Is that baby Bjorn? Yeah. Thank you, Kimberly. This is one of my favorite dresses too. It is actually the first of the Amazon dresses that I bought it, I think. This is, sorry, my back hurts. I'm having a hard time moving this morning too. Yeah, it's just been a little bit of a challenging morning. This is the first dress that I bought from Amazon. This is the, the one with the sewn waist and the A-line skirt. Can you see the hem? Yeah, it touches my kneecap, so it's somewhere in the middle of my knee, and I love this print so much. As you can see, it's got some turquoise in there, it's got some lime green, and then the background is actually a navy. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the well wishes. Yeah, sometimes my back doesn't cooperate. Doesn't help that I'm heavy, for sure, but yeah, I definitely did something to my back. Yeah, my earrings match, don't they? These are the tassel earrings in Be So Fine yarn in color Calypso Lime, and I love how they match with the lime in the print of the dress. Anything in Caribbean turquoise would go with this too, or even Blue Danube would be great with it. Thank you, Thea. Thank you, Naomi. Yes, I'll take all the healing vibes I can get. I don't know how I'm going to manage what I'm supposed to get done today. I'm going to probably have to take it slower than I normally would like to. Oh, and I got my hair in that bun thing, that little bun thing from Amazon. This is day 4 hair today. So I've noticed this week that as I've been training my hair to not need washing as much, day 1 hair is lasting through day 2. So if you notice this week, I was able to keep my hair down for day 1 and day 2. And it wasn't until day 3 that I put my hair in braids. And today I could have done braids again. It wasn't even that bad. I didn't even need to add dry shampoo this morning. Like, my hair looked fine today. It was just heavier and more texture because of the product in it now, because I have a couple days of dry shampoo in there. But this is day 4 hair, and I will wash my hair tomorrow or tonight, whatever. But I feel like I guess I don't need to. I could actually go one more day. So what I'm trying to get at is that I've noticed a difference already since the several weeks that I've done this now. Day 3 was tough in the beginning. Day 2 was iffy. Day 2 was bad in the very beginning, but then now I'm finding that I'm going 4 or 5 days, and day 2 is just as good as day 1 here. So that's very exciting to me. I like seeing progress. Speaking of progress, I've made some progress on the new bag collection. I've been working on prints. I'm basically still just practicing my skills, my newfound skills in Illustrator, like taking my hand-drawn drawings and using them to make repeating patterns in Illustrator and fooling around with text design in there too, to manipulate text to make cute graphics, and definitely making progress there. I don't have a cohesive collection together yet, and I need to stop pressuring myself about that. It'll happen when it happens. The good news is I'm having so much fun doing it that I feel like when you're really having a lot of fun doing something, that's when you're going to get the best results. That's why we've talked about before, if you're having trouble with a project or with a technique, and it doesn't matter what you're working on. It could be knitting, it could be crocheting, it could be sewing, it could be cooking, it could be graphic design. It doesn't matter. Whatever you're working on, if you're struggling with it and you're no longer enjoying it, it is time to set it down. The best results come from when you're having joy about what you're doing. So, and it's okay. It's all part of the process. So if you're not feeling joy and you're stressing out about something, just set it down, put it on the back burner, set it down for a little bit, go do something else. As long as you stay in, as long as you can always reach for a state of joy, no matter what, you'll always do better at whatever you're trying to do. So I got a reminder about that yesterday because I was stressing out that I don't have the collection done. I don't have the whole thing done. But I was having fun with what I was doing. And so a friend of mine reminded me, as long as you're enjoying it, that is the goal. It's like, oh yeah, you're right. I got to remind other people about this. So I've been trying to remind people about it ever since. Yeah, it's great words to remember. And isn't it funny how quickly we can forget, how quickly when stress comes into our lives, it makes all of those good reminders fly out the window, and I don't know why. So it's always good to get positive motivational reminders. Hi Geraldine. Hi Marcia and Barbara. Okay, so we said we were going to continue on where we left off in our discussion about foundation ovals yesterday. Let's see what yeah, pain makes all logic go out the window too. So we'll see how focused I can stay today with my back hurting. I should be fine though. I should have taken something for it this morning. But see, there's another thing. When you're stressed about something, you don't come up with the good ideas. I should have taken ibuprofen as soon as I woke up this morning and realized that my back was hurting. But because I was stressed about my back hurting, I forgot to do something sensible. I'll do it when we're done. Okay, a great question came up yesterday in the comments after the podcast was over. And that question was, why do some things like the Sweet Clara top look like an A-line even though we didn't do increases after switching from the separating the yoke to arms and body? Let me just show you. So here's a Sweet Clara top. Okay, rough. It's not a great drawing. But, so this is a top-down construction, right? We work increasing in the yoke, and then we separate we skip the sleeves and just work in the round for the body for the rest of the project. And once we get to here, from here down, there are no increases. So someone was asking me yesterday, how is it possible that it's still A-lines? Well, first of all, this top is a more generously sized top. but that's not the point, because you'd think it would still go straight down. And this is also applies, and this is more so in crochet than knitting, in my personal opinion. Well, let's see. No, not necessarily. It depends, because, okay, because you have to bind off in knitting, and this applies to Tunisian crochet, I think, maybe not. Well, because you have to bind off in knitting, how you bind off has a lot to do with how stretchy your end is. So if you were going to do, you know, that yarn over bind off that I love for lace, where you do a yarn over before binding off a stitch, that would give you more of that A-line finish along down here as well. In crochet, as you're working, however you started your project, so row one, especially if you did it with starting chains, row one is always going to be narrower than row whatever the last row. If you use foundation ovals, depending on the size of the foundation ovals, you can get a similar size, but the last row is always going to be the largest row. And if you have a scalloped edge, it will always be even wider. So that's why when we're doing a rectangle shawl, you'll notice that almost always I start in the middle and work both sides out like this. Otherwise, what I find happens, and I can't stand when this happens, when a project is smaller on one side and wider on the other. That drives me nuts. I'm not big on asymmetrical things, certainly when they're not intentional. There are times when things are asymmetrical intentionally, and that can be cool. There are some designers who are really amazing at it. It's not my thing, and one of the reasons why it's not my thing is because it's not intentional. And when things aren't intentional, that they should be symmetrical if that's what you intended. So when you start something in the middle and work out in both directions, this applies to knitting or crochet, you can control how much stretch you have on here based on what you're doing. So if you're knitting, how you choose to bind off will allow you to choose how much stretch you have. So like if you're knitting and you're doing lace, and you're doing lace on larger needles than the yarn normally calls for, so that you have room for your stitch pattern to grow, you absolutely want to use a super stretchy bind off so that you have that flexibility to grow as much as the pattern needs to grow. That's another reason. And so your cast on is also important for that too. If I was doing a lace rectangular wrap and I wanted the whole thing to stay symmetrical, I wouldn't even do a tight cast on in here. I would do probably a knit cast on along here, because knit cast on to me has the stretchiness and the flexibility of a foundation single crochet. I think of those interchangeably. So when I want something that's going to be somewhat invisible, and you could do the what's the cast on where provisional cast on is another great one for here, where you use a scrap piece of yarn for casting on, and then do the one side, and then when you go to start the other side, you pick out that provisional cast on and put the live stitches back on your needles and work in that direction. That's actually the most invisible way to do it. And then you can choose how you want to bind off. So with crochet, same thing applies here. You want to do something stretchy in here, and preferably something that mimics your stitch pattern. And that's what we were going to talk about this morning, is what size foundation ovals do you use, and how many do you use in stitch patterns. And stitch patterns is where it gets a lot different than, say, like the Selma top, like we were talking yesterday. In the Selma top, it's just plain stitches, right? There's no multiple to the stitches. So then you're doing the foundation ovals, and based on how many chains you put, did I say that right? I felt like I had another letter in there. Depending on how many chains are in your foundation oval, that's how many stitches you're replacing, or how many chains you're replacing. But let me pull down some of the other garments that have stitch patterns. Whoa. Sorry, baby. We'll have to put you over here. There you go. I'm going to grab 2 of these so we can talk about these stitch patterns and where and why and how we add foundation ovals. And I actually did add foundation ovals to these. And you know what's funny is that I don't have the patterns handy, so, well, isn't that cute? reminds me of like that age-old fear of coming out of a public bathroom and having your pants tucked into your shirt, or your shirt tucked into your pants the wrong way, or God forbid having toilet paper stuck to the bottom of your shoe. Wouldn't that be awful too? Hey, this is a fun pattern. This one's from 52 Crochet Gifts. If you're looking for a last-minute gift for the holidays right now, how cute is that? It's this little, what do you call it? It's not a lanyard. What do you call the thing that you put on your eyeglasses? Can't think of the name right now. But anyway, it's with Be So Fine yarn and some beads, and it looks like bows. Isn't that adorable? I love this pattern. All right, we'll put that properly back on the mannequin. All right, and find room for myself. All right, so these actually both do start, let's see, my mini dress form would look cute on the shelf. You know, it would, but I would need to put something flat up there because it's mesh. I would need to put something flat under it, otherwise the feet would get tangled in there. I'll show you. It's right here. See, it's got these little feet, and they would fall right through the mesh on there. So I might put it on my desk at some point. Anyway, let's get back to this. So I don't have the patterns handy, and I'm glad about that, because if someone is familiar with the pattern, says, hey, you used a different foundation oval in there, that's okay, because whatever size foundation oval you decide to do, it's a theory, and there are options. So whether I did a small one up here, which I might have, and if I did a smaller one than the stitch pattern called for, is because I wanted the neck to be tighter. But if you were, so like, let me just get to it. So this stitch pattern has how many stitches in there? There's a 5-stitch cluster in here, and then there's a 5-stitch like X pattern in here, and it's offset, and that doesn't matter, but basically we're looking at a 5 and 5 stitch here, right? So there's 5 stitches here, and then there's, with chains and stitches, it's probably 5 stitches here too. So we're looking at 10 stitches in 2 different sections, and for me that kind of sounds like you could probably do any of the foundation ovals, but I would probably want to do 2, one for this section and one for this section. And if you look up here, that's what I did. Let's see if we can get that close. Can you see that first row? See how there's a foundation oval for the cluster of stitches? It might be 4 stitches or 5 stitches, I'm not sure. And then there's a foundation oval for the chain and that chain and X stitch area. Can you see that? Yes, this is the Trixie pullover. Thank you, Judy, for sharing the link. It's a great pattern, top-down construction, beautiful stitch pattern, makes a gorgeous sweater too. Isn't that just lovely? I need to wear this again soon. Anyway, so you can see up here, we did a foundation oval for this section and a foundation oval for this section. Now, I might have used a smaller foundation oval in this particular one because I was doing a yoke. If you were doing a rectangular shawl with this stitch pattern and starting from the center with foundation ovals and wanting to maintain the integrity and the gauge and the stretchiness of the fabric, you would want to use a larger foundation oval probably and do something that was a little more representative of the stitches that you're using. So I would probably do a chain 5 treble if I was doing this, whereas you could get away with a chain 3 double because you're doing increasing, going from a neck through to a yoke. Does that make sense? Before we go further, I want to make sure that that actually makes sense, that you have options in foundation ovals, and what you use it depends on the practicality of what you're using it for. All right, I'm seeing yeses. Yay! Makes me happy when I see yeses. Great, I'm so glad you never thought about that, Linda. Okay, so what I said here would also apply when you're doing a cowl. So let's draw a cowl real quick here, because you'll notice that I do foundation ovals in cowls too. There we go. Little 3D can of soup will work. Is that on camera? I can't tell. Is it on camera? Yeah, okay. So with a cowl, this same rule applies here too. If you want the cowl to be symmetrical, you would want to use you would want to use a foundation oval that better represents the stitches in there. If you wanted to do a cowl, and I do this type of cowl sometimes too, where I start small and then let it grow at the bottom, and that's usually if I'm going to add a scallop trim at the bottom. If you're doing that, then you can use a smaller foundation oval and let it grow. That type of cowl actually sits really nice on. I also would do a tighter foundation oval comparatively to for the stitch pattern if I was doing for a Mobius. So I have a great pattern called the Rio Mobius that starts with foundation ovals, and as you work into the top and bottom of the foundation ovals, you end up working that figure 8 formation, so that as you finish the cowl, you're working along the top of this and then along the bottom of this, so that when you're done, you have the edge for the top and bottom. It's all done in one piece, and that one starts with foundation ovals. For that one, you could go a little smaller in the beginning if you wanted as well, because you're trying to emphasize the edging on that one. Okay. Thank you, Judy. Judy knew I was going to come talk about this one next. This is the Margot top and dress pattern, and this has a smaller stitch pattern in it. This one we have chain 3 spaces, but in order to get started on this pattern, I started it with a double crochet chain 5 round because I wanted to get to the shells next, and I thought this had like a necklacey effect. So the foundation ovals here have nothing to do with the stitch pattern because of this design element that I added here. And if you notice when you see it on me, or if you wear it, it kind of looks like a necklace, doesn't it? And that was done on purpose. You can see it better on the back here. It was meant to look like a necklace for that first round because I wanted this scallop to be the first round of the pattern. Now, because of that, I probably used a smaller foundation oval just because it was a neckline. And if you want your neckline tighter or looser than the given pattern, that's where you could tighten it up there too. You could tighten it up with a smaller foundation oval. Honestly, if you really want a tighter neckline, switch back to foundation or chains. Yep, you could add beads to that too. You could add beads to anything. You know, honestly, whether a pattern calls for beads or not, you could always add beads to anything. And, you know, not only that, but you can choose where you think the beads should go. There are some tricks to figuring out where beads should go. Like, for example, on this stitch pattern, if you were looking at the chart, let's say, and you notice that there's that V stitch. So like, see this round here? Let me get a better one on. See this round here on the chart, it would show you that it's a double crochet, chain 3 double crochet, and you might say, hey, that middle chain would be perfect for a bead, not realizing that the following round you're adding 5 double crochets in that chain 3 space, and so because of that, that would be a terrible place to put a bead, right? So you do have to, I would definitely, you got to do a gauge swatch for a garment anyway. So as you're doing your gauge swatch, that's when you should start thinking about where you would want to add your beads. because it's not just where it makes sense structurally in the chart, but it's where the stitches are actually exposed and not hidden by other stitches. All right, I was talking about this one though. Let's come back here. All right, so again, this one has a special circumstance in the top here, but let's say we were going to make this one as a symmetrical rectangular wrap or a symmetrical cowl. And remember, if you have a pattern, like this pattern shows you how to work this stitch pattern in the round, that chart and those written instructions, like for the lower body here, that's all you need. If you, and knowing your gauge, that's all you need to make a cowl or a Mobius. You have all of the tools for doing that. If you have a stitch pattern for a garment or anything that shows you how to work flat in rows, then you have all you need to convert that pattern into a rectangular wrap as well. Once you have, there are components of patterns that you can extract to make other things too. We should talk about that more one day. That's actually a great subject. Would you guys like to talk more about that? Like, I could pull out some patterns and talk to you about what you could extract from them to actually make more patterns. Yes, Karen, there's a lot to think about with when making a garment rather than jumping right in. Starting with, and here's something that I think really a lot of people miss the mark on, and that is getting dazzled by how it looks in the photos, especially in like magazines and books. You'll say, oh gosh, that looks so pretty on her or him, or I love that color, or I love the way it's styled, and not take into consideration how you normally dress or how you normally style things. And I think there can be a lot of disappointment when you think about making something that isn't necessarily something that you normally make. And I'm not saying, no, it wouldn't look good on you. I'm saying, what do you normally wear? What is your comfort zone? And when you think about in terms of, do I wear mini skirts? Do I wear leggings? Do I wear high-waisted jeans or low-waisted jeans? Do I wear tops that tuck in? Do I wear tops that don't tuck in? These are all things that are really important to consider how you're going to wear and style something. So that's the first thing that I would consider when choosing a pattern. Then, what size do you need to make? So whether it's studying the schematic to figure out the sizes, measuring tops in your closet, like take your favorite tops out of your closet, lay them flat and measure them and make sure, because you might be surprised that whatever size bra you wear isn't the size top you wear. You know, I wear a 38 whatever in a bra, but maybe my tops are 36s because I like a little negative ease. Maybe my tops are 42 inches because I like them oversized. And these are things that you may not know about yourself until you actually sit down and measure your clothes. So first, style. Second, actual size. Then third, making sure that you get the gauge right for making the garment that you want to make. You can make it can turn out so wrong, even if you do all the stitches right and you follow all the directions correctly. If your gauge is off, and we've talked about this before, the scale is so vast because on a gauge swatch that's 4 inches, if you're off by an inch, multiply that inch by whatever size you're making, you can end up making something for an elephant or something for a mouse, depending on how off your gauge is. And it's just so disappointing that you can spend so much money and so much time and put so much love and effort into something and think that you did everything right and it still didn't turn out, and it's because you didn't take the time to make the gauge, wash it, block it, and make sure that your numbers matched up to the pattern. Does this matter as much in making things that like an afghan or a scarf? No. I mean, if you want to stick to a yardage, then it's still important, believe it or not. But as far as garments go, I would much rather see everybody have successful experiences. And when I say successful, I don't just mean getting the project to turn out right, but enjoying the process and not feeling defeated at the end because you have to start all over or whatever else you may want to do with it. I just feel like taking that little bit of time towards the beginning will save so much headaches and so much negative and stressful feelings. Yeah, it happens to everybody, Karen. It happens to everybody. And uh, Robin's made an elephant top. I remember my grandma made me an elephant top years ago. I had both of my grandmas were crafters. Funny, my one grandma who knit never taught me, and my one grandma who crocheted, she she showed me a couple of things like when I was 8 years old, like we sat down and she just showed me like a couple of stitches, but it was not how I learned. Like I remember her showing me, I was visiting her in a nursing home and she showed me what she was doing, but it wasn't actually like a lesson. But anyway, years later, my other grandma who knit me a sweater, and it was in the 80s, so I mean it was supposed to be oversized, but she didn't wash her swatch. She may not have swatched at all. She definitely didn't wash the swatch, and she definitely didn't wash the sweater. It looked cute when I first tried it on, but as soon as I washed it, it turned out, oh my gosh, it was made out of mohair, and it was thin mohair, but she must have used big needles. It was so big when we took it out of the water. It was down to my knees. The sleeves were out to here. It was humongous. Couldn't wear it and couldn't tell her either. Oh my gosh, Carla did a mouse top. I love seeing everybody use the elephant and mouse analogy. That's great. So somebody else, Robin made an elephant top. Carla made a mouse top. Her first knit sweater for her, ended up giving it to her granddaughter. Yeah, that's a big difference. Kimberly's shoulders are wider, and then bust and hips small. Oh, she has to make a jump. Yeah. Not everybody. We're all slightly different sizes and shapes too, right? Yay! Geraldine makes gauge swatches and washes them before making garments, and it helps her from making serious mistakes. Christine, I'm just saying if you don't pay attention to gauge, your top can turn out way too big or way too small. Hence the elephant and mouse analogy. No big deal. Yay! Debbie hasn't had that problem either. Wonderful. Thea always swatches and doesn't make garments. Well, there's other good reasons to make swatches too, not just for getting gauged, but how about for practicing the stitches too? It's really important to figure out what you're doing. Karen couldn't get her first pullover over her head. So my first disaster was actually with the first thing I ever made with a pattern. When I was pregnant with Marlon and I taught myself how to knit and crochet, the first pattern that I followed, because I'd been making blankets for him and things, and I wanted to make booties, and so I followed this written pattern in a booklet, and I remember it took me hours to make the one booty, and it was like this big, and I was like, oh no, but there was a silver lining here. It was anatomically correct. So it was the correct shape of a booty. And it occurred to me, wow, this is correct. I just made it too big. I just need a smaller hook. And so somehow it made sense to me. And although I didn't understand gauge or any of that other stuff, it made sense to me. And so I went back and used a smaller yarn and a smaller hook. And I was successful at making baby booties then. And I was like, if I can do this, I can do anything. And that was how I got started. Hello, Migdalia. Yep, it happens, Christine. We all get on. Sometimes things make sense and sometimes things don't. It's easy to get distracted and caught up on something else. Yes, Trisha, you learn from doing, and you learn from your mistakes too. Absolutely. Barbara's currently finishing up a little dress for her granddaughter that started as a large top for her. Wow, so you know what we're talking about too. It happens to everybody. But when you're tired of making those mistakes, you learn from them and you start doing gauge swatches. Or you never get tired of making the same mistakes and you continue to make them. I mean, it's a choice. It's always a choice. Oh, this was a great conversation today. I hope you learned something from the different things that we talked about today. I certainly enjoyed hearing everybody's stories and sharing my own too. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to spend a few minutes here with me. I hope you enjoyed chatting with me and everyone else. Let us make time to create, share, and inspire today and every day. Have a wonderful day. Happy Friday Eve, and I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Bye-bye.